Hi, everybody. We are on with Mindrise coach Danielle Ford today, and we're talking about making friends. When Danielle and I were brainstorming, like, what should we be talking about for our podcast? A recurring theme would come up all the time, and it's about connection, right? Having that power of connection. And connection happens through friendships. So whether it's that you've moved to another place, which I know you're going to share with us a story about the art of moving and the perils of moving, but so whether it is that you've moved or that you've changed social circles or that you have gotten a new job, we're going to talk all about how to make friends as adults. So if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to the Mindrise podcast. We are on Apple, Spotify. You can watch us on YouTube, and we're hanging out on Google Play as well. And when you make sure that you subscribe, also leave us a review. All good news. We really appreciate it. So thank you so much. All right, Danielle, are you ready to hit it, kid?
I'm ready.
Okay. So yeah, not only do I want to talk about adult friendships, but I also want to talk about making friends as an adult when you are in transition and change.
Yeah, it's so super fun topic, and can be, I think, a little bit more difficult when you're in the middle of transition. And I think for me, like the biggest thing with making new friends as an adult is giving myself permission to be a little bit more vulnerable, and do things that make me a little bit uncomfortable, and just kind of doing it anyway. So I'll share a story. When I moved to Nashville in 2014, I moved without any friends. I had maybe like one person from high school that was living down there, and I just decided I was going for it. And I was starting a new job. I was living by myself, and I was in a city where I didn't know anybody. So that was like a lot of change and a little intimidating.
Right. Here's all the things are changing.
But also gave me a lot of opportunities because I looked at it in that way. Like it was a blank slate. I obviously was keeping, up with my current friend group. I just couldn't see them all the time. So there were a couple of things that I did that allowed me to expand my network and my social circle while I was down there. And I think one of them was just joining a sports team. So joining a community and finding a kickball team that we went out and played on Tuesday nights when I wasn't traveling. So I went and saw a bunch of people, and we connected with the same group every week. And in that group, we made it a point to get together outside of kickball. So it was like one night a week, we always did kickball, and then we always went and did something else. So there was just like the girls went out to do a night on the town, or we met with the whole team. We were always just trying to foster our relationships and our friendships, and being consistent in that way.
Right. And I think you said a lot of important things here, which first of all, it's my life goal to join an adult kickball team. Life goal.
Yeah, you got to do it.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. I just want to go on record as saying it will happen at some point in time. I will likely have to create it because it sounds so stinking fun. So I love that, but I love that you tapped into an interest that you already have. So I'm with you, because I want people to walk away from today's podcast with different tools that they could use when it comes to. So first of all, survey what your interests are. Let's go.
Absolutely.
Survey what your interests are, because if let's just say that you think that you're going to go make friends at a bar and you don't like to drink, and that whole culture of going out at night is not your jam, well, you're probably barking up the wrong tree.
Mm-hmm.
So I would definitely say that. I would also say, and I want to normalize it. So maybe this is 1A. You're not the only one.
Yeah.
Right. I think that, you and I have the privilege of talking to people for a living. And I can't tell you how many conversations that I've had, whether it's a move or a job change, or even, and I want to talk about this too, a relationship shift. So whether it's a divorce or a breakup, a lot of times we're looking around and saying, okay, now my relationships, my friendships there might need to shift. But the point I'm trying to make is that you're not the only one. So if anyone's listening to this and thinking that they're the only one who needs to make friends, you're not. There's lots of people who want to be your friend because they want to make friends too.
100%. And if you're here, like, that's amazing, because that's the first step, is acknowledging that you need a friend or that you want a new friend. And it's funny. I was thinking about this, like, as we decided on this topic today, that there's this concept that I have been hearing a lot over the last couple of years, like, no new friends, like hashtag no new friends. I just don't want any new friends. And I think that's ridiculous. And I get where people are coming from, because they're in their comfort zone, and I appreciate that they value their current friendships, but I also think you can always be open to having new people in your life. And I think that's really an important place to start too, is just saying, "Hey, I want some new friends in my life. I want new people in my life."
Right, right, right. I love that we have 3 first steps.
First steps.
3 first steps. First, you've got to acknowledge that you want to have friends. Second first, also first, you have to understand you're not the only one. And then third first is that you surveying what actually interests you. And also don't be afraid. So I don't know if you had done kickball before you decided. I mean, I imagine you've been to gym class.
Yeah. Yeah, as a child for sure, but it was not like it wasn't something that I did before I moved down to Nashville. Just said, this could be a fun new thing to try.
Right, right, right. Well, and it's super funny because you and I just started this episode today, and I said, "Don't laugh. You're never going to believe what I'm wearing," because I'm wearing my tennis dress as we're having this conversation, and that was a new interest. Like, I have really never been a tennis player, and I said, "Well, you know what? I'm going to move my body differently. I want to expand my friendships and my circle," and I took up something that was brand new. Now, I'm admittedly very terrible on this. I've been documenting how terrible I am at tennis on social media. I mean, I'm well dressed for the sport. But my plea to everyone is, like, don't be afraid to try something new.
Are you the only one who's just starting tennis that's in your tennis team?
Exactly. No, I'm not.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. Right. And it's so easy to tell ourselves a narrative, especially as we're older, like, oh, well, I didn't do it in high school. I didn't play any tennis in high school. In fact, I still don't have any hand-eye coordination skills. Right? But it was just a matter of you're not the only newbie.
That's amazing. Everybody starts somewhere. So I love that you're just going for it and doing something new and putting yourself out there. And then, expanding your circle, and also, like, expanding your set of skills too. Like, that's going to come with it, even though you think you're terrible now.
Right.
You're getting practice in, so you're only going to get better. And that's with anything new in life.
Right. Right, right. Well, and let's talk about the mindset of acquiring new friendships, because I hear what you're saying with this hashtag no new friends. And I was actually having a conversation yesterday with one of my mentors and saying that I think that in our culture where so much is digital, that I think we've become kind of cavalier about our friendships, and we almost determine our worth based on our follows or our likes. So, oh, I got a new friend today, or I have a new follower. We're not thinking about that in the context of, like, real life friendships.
Mhm.
And so I hear what you're saying about this hashtag no new friends. I am also very much in the space of wanting to, like, always be open to new friendships. But I mean, I think that sometimes we could treat things in a very disposable way where, I mean, I see you nodding your head. Like, does this resonate for you that we have to value our friendships that we do have, or the ones that we do make? I mean, people's time is valuable. And if they care enough about you to give you some of their time, that's really important.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that you're right on this being cavalier front, especially with social media, right? We see people's, like, what everyone calls them highlight reels. So they're showing you, like, the best parts of their life, not always the down and dirty. And I think a lot of people will connect at that surface level and then not really put the time or effort into a friendship. And any relationship takes work and some compromise and effort. It doesn't have to be like difficult. It shouldn't be too difficult, but it takes an effort in like being, interested in the person that you're speaking to, interested in their life, and figuring out really
Right.
what you want from a connection with that person as well. And then kind of just allowing them to be who they are and show you new things about life and enrich your life in a different way. But I do think you're 100% right that there are a lot of people out there who will just kind of do the surface level stuff, and it's all about the likes and the comments, but it's not really what truly matters and makes a difference, which is the connection behind all of that and the human to human piece of it.
I'm sure you've all heard the saying, nothing changes if nothing changes. And that's true. It's really hard to make change in our life without taking the time to actually look at the way that we're showing up in the world and the thoughts that we have that really dictate the way that we show up in the world. That is why we created the 90-day Elevate Journal. You're definitely going to want to grab this, and it's available now on Amazon. The 90-day Elevate Journal is essentially designed for you to take a deep dive into what it really means to rise, transform, and lead. Grab your copy for less than $20. You can always visit www.themindrise.com/elevate or check it out in the show notes. But you need to grab your copy of the 90-day journal now and really elevate to the next level.
I do want us to talk on today's episode. I want us to talk about the concept of almost like the target, where not everybody's going to be in your inner circle. And like, yeah, there's going to be people that are on the periphery, whether that is, their whisper distance, their conversational distance, or they're like all the way down the football field. I want to talk about that today for sure. But before we do, like, I also want to highlight something. So Danielle, my perception of Danielle is she's like really good at being a friend. And not that this is the exact measure, but how many weddings have you been in?
A lot. Upwards of 10.
Yes, right. Which, again, not to say that weddings are necessarily a measure of how much you're in someone's corner or how much that you're valued, but there is something to be said of that, like, hey, I regard our connection so much that I want you to be part of something that's special that's happening in my life. But you can't be everybody's bridesmaid.
Nope.
Obviously.
But I am a professional, so if you need tips for it.
So I guess my question is, like, what is it about a connection that you make that has it going so deep that you are a professional bridesmaid? That
I think it's for me, it's about the strength of our conversations, and it's not even like for me, it's not even frequency. I actually was talking to one of my friends about this weekend because she lives out in Texas, so we don't see each other as frequently as we used to, and we don't talk. We used to talk every day. We were down the street, we would go for a walk, whatever it was. We don't talk as much as we used to, but if I picked up the phone, I needed anything, I know I could call her, and she would do whatever needed to be done
right.
within reason. And I know I can have the harder conversations with her where I'm like, I'm stuck in my own way thinking about things from this perspective. Like, am I being crazy? Can you offer me another perspective? Like, what else am I not seeing in what's happening in front of my face? So for me, I value connections that are real and people are going to be completely honest and genuine with me. And then just, like have that human to human strong bond. Where
Right.
you can talk about anything and it's like, I don't think you're the craziest, you might be the craziest person I've ever met, but I don't think of you like that. Like, I love you no matter what.
Right. But you're making a good point, is like not only sharing the the highlight reel, but also like I think that we deepen our connection by being able to have those relationships where we can call and say, like, hey, let me run this by you. Right. So, and I also want to acknowledge that not everybody who's in your life is going to fit the bill of your inner circle.
100%.
So how do you determine who is in, like, if we're thinking about it like a target, who's in the center in your inner circle? How do you determine like who is conversational distance or who's all the way out in the outfield? Like, how do you determine those?
That's a great question. So I'm trying to think of it in the way like I had, a pretty solid group of friends. And then I guess it was probably 2 years ago, I met somebody who we just clicked at the winery I work at on the weekends. And we saw each other at a party a couple weeks later. And then, fast forward 18 months, I was in her wedding. Like we just were on that level very quickly. Same thing with my friendship with Jen. There's I guess like an effort of like two ways. So it's not just like one person who's always doing the reaching out. And then it's somebody who's just kind of willing to dive into the shit with you sometimes when you let go of your, wanting other people to have a certain perception of you or think about you in a certain way, and you're just willing to be vulnerable and open yourself up to whatever is going to happen in that relationship. So those are two things for me that I think usually make a stronger connection, and make me have like a friendship that I'm like, oh, there's, you're my core crew. Like you're in here now. I don't usually let people out, like you're in, so that's it.
This gate only swings one way. Once you come in, you can't get out. It's kind of like the mob. No big deal.
Yeah, you can, but I'm always gonna love you and I'll always check up on you no matter where you are.
Right. We call ourselves coaches, but we're actually stalkers. So no big deal.
Loving stalkers, I would say.
We are going to lovingly stalk you and just paint our rooms with your face on our wallpaper. No big deal.
What about for you, Bailey? What do you think determines people who are like in your inner circle versus the ones that are kind of on the periphery?
Right. So to your point, the two-way effort, it's got to be a two-way effort. I also liked what you said about that willingness to be vulnerable, right? And that has to be both that other person and me, because it's not always sunshine and moonbeams. I also liked what you said about, that even if you are the crazy friend, they're like, you're the crazy friend and you're my crazy friend.
Yeah.
I have one of my girlfriends. Oh my God, she's so funny. And I hope she listens to this episode. And I said, we were planning my 40th birthday, and we come up with so she was just on my level. She sat down, she had a blank piece of paper and a pen. She's like, okay, tell me all the places that you want to go. I was like, you're speaking my language, right? You knew exactly how to talk to me. So it was her and I and our laptops and literally the world map. And I would say, oh, blah, blah, blah country. I said, but I don't know the time of year. She's like, no. I'll just write it down. And she was like in the game with me. And then after a while, I said, am I after I mentioned the Seychelles and the Maldives, just otherworldly places. And I just said, am I your craziest friend? And she said, well, I really do love reality TV. Oh gosh. But it's just, I want to say two things here. So yes, I'm very much in your category, and that's probably why you and I get along so well. I know somebody sits in my inner circle when it's two-way, when it's vulnerability, when you can be the crazy person and someone just meets you where you're at. And I also want to acknowledge that you, me, all of us, everybody's listening, we are not going to be everybody's cup of tea. And that's very important to honor. And I think that we don't do ourselves any service when we try to pretend that we're someone that we're not to be liked. If you rolled down to Nashville and you strapped on some boots and a cowboy hat and this Jersey girl, just to make friends, that probably wouldn't have been you.
I did on some boots, but I had them before I went to Nashville. So.
I was going to say, but I do know you are a fan of
the I'm pretty sure I was a farmer in a previous life, but no, I think that's super important. So, and then it raised another question for me. So you connect with people when they're also being vulnerable. What happens if you are I'm opening up to this other person and they are just not willing to meet you there? Oh
God, that feels so crappy. That feels so crappy. It's almost like those nightmares that you have where you go to school and you're naked. You're like, no one else is naked, or it's just me. And I have had that because I love level 4 conversations. Level 1 is like, when we like wave to our neighbor from across the street, that's level 1. It's when you swing into the gas station and, you're just picking up your coffee and you wave to the cashier. That's level 1. Level 2 is, very much like, how's your vacation? Nice. How's grandma? Nice. Everything's nice, good, right? And level 3, I find, is more like, oh God, let me like tell you about my day. And I can lean into you. And I love that. And then we go level 4. And level 4 is when I ask like existential questions about how you feel about your entire life philosophy. But I do. So, and I just know that that's me. And that's probably who I'm always going to be. It's really who I've always been. So for me to pretend that I'm something that I'm not, that's always going to be a mismatch. Now, that doesn't mean that I have to like pour my heart and soul and bear like all of my, stresses and woes to every single person that I meet to like pressure test whether or not they're going to be my BFF. Right. But I have had the experience where we're sharing stories and it's like, okay, you're going here. Okay, then I'm going there. And then, all right. And seeing where it's at and taking it almost like step by step in that conversation. And if I feel like, oh, I'm a little bit more naked than you, and oh, I'm seeing you feel uncomfortable with that, I'm gonna back off and I'm gonna understand where our friendship can be. So you're probably conversational distance. I go to a party or I have a barbecue, you might be invited. But if I'm crying because my heart was broken or, someone ran over my cat, you're probably not my phone call.
Yeah. I think that's super important too, is knowing like what you have to know what level other people are
Right.
at. And I think you are exceptionally skilled at kind of figuring out where people's like edges and their boundaries are in that way, and just saying like, okay, like this is, and that they have a place and a space in your life, and you know exactly where that is.
Right. I also have to say, and I'm curious for you, like, what are your relationship or friendship pet peeves? I know that we started off with like, how do we make friends? And I'm like, give me the dirt. Like, what's your relationship like pet peeves? What would that be?
I think when people, if there's somebody that like knows, I don't know, something super specific about me from a boundary perspective, and they just are like constantly not respecting that boundary.
Hmm.
And I know this about me, but I am a very like blunt and upfront, ki- kindly, so, and usually as softly as I can person, but I'm going to tell you how it is and what I'm thinking and what I'm feeling. And if you're willing to just continue to step over that boundary, like that's it. Like that's my biggest pet peeve in my life.
Right. Right. And yeah, I could definitely pick up on that one, that when someone's violating our boundaries, which we're going to do a whole boundaries podcast, so we won't go into that at this moment.
Yeah.
I'm like, what number is that on the list? But yeah, boundary violations are definitely one of them. And I think that's kind of a red flag, because an initial boundary violation is an opportunity for us to just communicate with somebody of like, hey, that didn't feel good. Or, hey, when this happened, I responded like this. I would have rather, you could definitely assert your boundary. Another pet peeve that I have is when I feel like someone is just friends with me so that they can get something.
Oh yeah.
Oh, always feels so icky. Like if you don't hear from them, except if they have to, I don't want to say like ask for a favor, because anybody who's listening to the podcast, you ever need like a couch moved or, like your dog walked, call me, I'll help you. I'm happy to help. Right. I'm always happy to help, but like someone who would only reach out to you if they needed something, but in that way.
And I think isn't willing to do the same on their end. Like not
Right.
they ask things of you that they're not willing to give in
Right.
return. And you
Yeah.
can feel that. Like you can totally feel that
Oh,
energy from people, and you're like, okay, that's good. But
yeah, because I'm a big fan of asking people for favors. I had this conversation with a client a long time ago, and I said, if you were to carry a couch, right, and you got a couch and you had to carry it to the second or third floor, Is it going to be easier to carry it by yourself, or is it going to be easier to carry it with another person on the end? And the client was like, other person on the end. I'm like, yeah, but why do you keep doing all of the heavy lifting in the relationships? You're basically carrying the couch by yourself. And so I'm a big fan of asking people for favors, because that actually deepens our connection, right? Because I'm happy to do a favor for you. So I want you to feel comfortable asking me to do a favor. And this is especially like in my mom world where I'm at right now, right? Like, I'm going to ask you to watch Phoebe, keep an eye on her, or, hey, do you mind picking her up? Because I want to do the same, and I want to be able to show up for you in that space.
Yeah, I think that is just another layer of being vulnerable as well, right? Like we're overachievers, and a lot of people who listen to this podcast are overachievers and are high stress, want to be able to control maybe a little bit of perfectionism going on in there. And it's another level of vulnerability to look at people and say like, hey, I need your help. Like, and it doesn't always come across in the I need your help because I'm, in a puddle of tears, a mess on the floor, but like I need your help with the small things too, because you can't do everything in your life by yourself.
No, I mean, and biologically, we're not built, I mean, to operate independently. In fact, like whether you look at a snapshot of tribal culture, anything in history, or even like what's the most significant punishment other than death in the United States, it's solitary confinement. Like we are built to work on the energy of others, which is also like a whole case I have to like seeing people in person, kind of important. I'll use Zoomers. And I'm a Zoomer, and our entire business has been, virtual for a decade. So, but we still need human connection, and that's important. I know that was like a mini soapbox.
No, it's true. And I think everybody plays a role too, right? Like you're not going to if you have like a group of friends, not every single one of your friends is going to be like a cardboard cutout of each other. Like they all have unique skills and gifts and things they bring to the world, and they're not going to look and act exactly like you. And I think that's super important too, because everybody has to play a role. And then we come to, this earth school for life lessons, and we learn from each other. So I think that for me is another thing that's really important, and something I value a lot in my friendships is like what can the people in my life teach me that I haven't learned yet, or that I haven't experienced, but they're willing to share that they've experienced it. So that's another one that's on my list of not pet peeves, but things I value a lot in friendship.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, while we wrap up the pet peeve thing, sometimes people's pet peeve can be punctuality. And as a person who runs on island time, because I really do, I'm 3-5 minutes on off. And I feel like I communicate that, to my people. You don't have to take, I just want to say like a little public service announcement for everybody out there. Like you don't have to take other people's punctuality like personally.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's fine for you to communicate like, hey, the dinner reservation is at 5:00. So lovingly, do I need to tell you 4:30? Just let me know. And like, or it's really important that you be here at this time. Or as the island time person saying, hey, I'm going to be running a little bit late. I think that can be a major pet peeve in people's friendships, but just understand that it's one of those matters of like communication is going to go so far in an instance like that to preserve a connection.
Yeah, and you know what, I think I know that used to be a pet peeve of mine, and I have a very good friend who I consider very close to me, and she always was between 10 and 15 minutes late. And it bothered me for a very long time because I never said it out loud. Like it really bothers me, or I feel like it's disrespectful of my time or whatever was going on. Never said it. And then at one point in my life, I just said, I love this person, and this is who they are, and this is how they behave. And it's not personal to me. It has nothing to do with me. It has nothing to do with our friendship. And I was making it mean all sorts of things and telling myself stories in my head about she doesn't care about our friendship and blah, blah, blah. And it has nothing to do with it. Like that is It's literally because if she looks at a clock, all the numbers just sit at the bottom. There's no like hands on the clock. It's that's just how she is, and that's okay. And we're still very good friends to this day, and it doesn't bother me the way that it used to. 'Cause I
Right.
let go of my own, vision of control and what it had to look like, and just said like, "I love you, and this is who you are, and that's okay." So now I have an extra 10 to 15 minutes to get where I need to be when when I'm meeting her because I know she's gonna be late anyway, so
Right. 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 I love the reframe. But you know what it gave me reminded me about is one of the texts that we use in the coach training program, the 4 agreements,
Mhm,
and like not taking things personally.
definitely, yeah.
the that is such an important tenet because I mean, and not to spoil the book for anybody who hasn't read the 4 agreements yet, but I loved the part where they're talking about like everybody is living in their own dream, their own matote, their own story, right? They're literally on their own channel, and that's not because they're selfish or disrespectful or narcissistic, like anything like that. It's just we all literally have our own dream, our own version of things. And you can't change who you are for someone else, right? I have a tendency, and I say have because I'm still working on it, but I have a tendency to want to protect your feelings. So I won't say the thing that I need to say because I'm worried about how you're going to react. So I just won't say it. And I still work on this. I mean, this is a lot of times we come to the work that we do because it's what we need to work on. And what I found was it is not my responsibility to caretake for what I think your feelings are going to be. Right. And just the same, I can't take you personally.
Yeah.
So going back to what we were talking about before, if I'm going like level 4 with someone and they're bringing me like level 2, like how's your grandma energy? And I know like, ooh, this is not a person for me to be vulnerable with, or this is not a person for me to go deep with. It's not because they don't see me as valuable. It's just who they are or where they're at. Or like we can't take it personally.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. You have to give people the grace and the space to be who they are and
Yes.
like, accept them for who they are instead of just trying to make them fit into, the mold that you want them to fit into. And that's a lesson that I feel like sometimes I still struggle with and I'm still working on as well. Because I'm like, oh, you shouldn't do that or you shouldn't be. But there's no rule book that anybody should or shouldn't do anything in this life. And they're all learning at the same, maybe at a different pace, maybe at the same pace as you or somebody else. So it's really important to like step back, take yourself and your personal feelings out of it and say, this is who they are. And can you just find a way to love them even if it's they're pushing your buttons?
Right. 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 100%. 100%. And you're not, just like we said, like you're not for everybody. Everybody isn't for you.
Nope.
They're not supposed to be. There will be people that rub you the wrong way. I've had the occasion where someone could just walk in the room. I've never met them before. I was like, but I'm like, oh, energetically, no. And I know that sounds so woo-woo, but there's the truth that there'll be people like, let's say you're at a dinner party and everybody's, brought a spouse, a significant other, a partner, a buddy, a kickball team member, whoever. And someone's talking and literally it's like nails on a chalkboard. This person's just not for you. Like, that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's also okay. And I think it's interesting because I think that we're so indoctrinated into you've got to be nice to everybody and you have to play. Yes, you have to be respectful, but you're not everybody's cup of tea and they're not going to be all your cup of tea.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. And I think the being on the other side of that is the like was is always the hardest thing for me, but I'm always not always anymore, but putting my thought out like, oh, but what if they don't like me? And then when I come to an event or anything in that space, the I'm not showing up as myself because I'm too worried about what somebody else is going to.
Right.
And then I'm bringing an energy where you know what, they might not like me because I'm thinking about the fact that they might not like me. So I think that's super important as well for people to like think about and before flip it on its head. Like, what if they do like you? What if they think you're weird, but they like you anyway?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Right. So that was like bringing about another question that I had. Like, so for you, what allowed you to start to let go of that worry? Because I know that that could be a very common worry. What if people don't like me? Or I'm too much, or I'm too fill in the blank,
It's
whatever.
it's the coming back to the work. Like, what if they do? And looking at this as just like, this is a thought. Where is it coming from? It's
Mhm.
normally coming from fear, which is something that we have just, you know, projected in our minds as something that's going to be real, but it's not always real, even
Yeah.
though it can feel very real.
Right.
And doing it anyway. Sometimes I think I was listening to a podcast of someone's recently. I don't remember what the episode was, but she said like it's okay to have doubt, it's okay to be afraid, but do it anyway. Just do it. Like you can it's that's a feeling that is very real, but you can let it exist in you and do the thing you're afraid of anyway.
Right.
And you
Because
might be happy about the result.
right. Because that fear is just information. Right. So maybe that if you have a fear of like, okay, I'm going to a new work event and I don't know anybody. I mean, so many people are going back into the office and they were hired virtual. Right. So I don't know anybody. I'm going into something that like, um, and we start to create that narrative, right? Is anybody going to like me? What if I'm too, whatever, fill in the blank. And I think that we have to just see like, oh, this fear, this anxiety is coming up for me. How can I caretake for myself in that? And that could be anything from a pep talk or affirmations to like wearing your favorite underwear. Like, you know what? I'm wearing my best underwear as I'm heading in, right? There's, we could do meditation, we can do a visualization. There's so many great hacks. But to me, it just starts with, oh, I'm anxious. That's that's just information I need to be taking care of myself before I do the thing that I'm nervous about.
Yeah, I think that's really, really imperative as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Before we wrap up, Danielle, something that like I was thinking about that is important is I think we have to also take into account being cognizant of what we are looking for. And that's not to say like so specific that, somebody has to fit our exact criteria, but I'm almost thinking about, in our coach training program, how we talk about an ideal client. Well, what if we reframed that a little bit and talked about like an ideal friend? Or like, okay, I'm really looking for my work buddy. Or you know what, I'm really looking for somebody that wants to be my running partner. Or you know what, I'm really looking for somebody that's just going to be a lot of fun on the weekends.
Yeah.
Um, I think we do have to get clear about what we're looking for, and also like what are some of the characteristics of that person. It sounds like someone that disrespects your boundaries. That's not your ideal client. That's not your ideal
That's not my ideal friend.
my ideal friend. Someone that would just be using me, you know, that would make me feel very uncomfortable. That would not be my ideal friend. So I think that that's also relevant. No, they don't have to like the same things that you do, but when we talk about ideal client in the coach training program, we're often one of the things that we do is do that exercise by way of like, where are they hanging out? What are they doing? And if we start to look at it from those lenses, I don't know, I'm tossing that in your direction because Danielle's one of our peer mentors for the program. So like, how do you like that reframe?
I think that's a really interesting thought and way to look at meeting new people, because I do think everybody does play a role in our lives. And usually when you're going out to meet people, there is something that you're looking for that you might not realize. And there may be things that you put on your list that are things that you wouldn't normally look for in a friend, that you're just like, I've never had a friend that, I don't know, plays tennis or does rollerblading, and I want to learn that. So I'm going to bring this skill set to them, being myself. And then here's what I would like, to learn or to come from our friendship. So I do think that's a really interesting thought. I feel like you could get yourself down into a pigeonhole of not being open to other people if you're too.
Oh yeah, if you're too linear,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, this advice would be like proceed with caution.
Yeah.
But I think that you have to be clear about what you're looking for because I mean, at this age and stage that I'm at right now, if somebody is like a partier and they're like raging every weekend, it's really just not the stage of life that I'm in right now.
Sure.
So that's probably not my person. But I do have a lot of friends that their kids are in their 20s or they're even grandparents, and they are good friends of mine. And it's not because they have to be exactly my same age or same life stage. It's just, meeting people where they're at and also meeting yourself and what you need.
Yeah. And people that you can have good conversation with, or similar interests, or just share some sort of part of yourself in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Such a good episode for today. Making the friends. Any parting thoughts, any parting words?
Just, I would say, be open to what's to come. And I think we talked about it a few times, but meet people where they are.
Yeah.
Instead of, wanting them to be someone or something that they're not. And knowing when you know that, when you meet people where they are, you can accept them and love them and invite them in, or you can say, you're not my cup of tea. And that's okay too.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And my parting thought would probably be the not taking people personally. I think it's really, really important, especially because making friends, it's vulnerability central. It's kind of like dating. It's very much like dating. And you might go out with somebody a couple of times or go do an activity with them, and you find out that you're just not a fit. That's okay. They don't have to sit in your inner circle. You can kind of move them out and where they are positioned, but you can't take people personally. I love that you're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to say, like, hey, I'm grabbing a cup of coffee. Do you want one? You want to come with me? I'm going to go for a walk on my lunch break. Do you want to come? Or to like say hi. Say hi. I actually have a client. I'll end on this story, but I have a client who moved to a new town, and she realized that she didn't know her neighbors or anybody until she got a dog. And once she got the dog, like everyone stopped and were saying hi to her, and she was saying hi to them. And that's only when it dawned on her, I don't know these people in my building because I've just been, working and busy. And it literally wasn't until she got a dog. So I'm not saying for everybody to go get a dog. It's not the public service announcement we're wrapping up on. But just say hi. You don't have to like bake a casserole and drop it off on someone's front door, but say hi. Be a human. Be a human being a human.
Yep, absolutely. I love that. It's a great thought and great story to end with. And you know what? If you want a dog, it does help. It opens the door to other dog people. So
yeah, and so the end of the story is, if you want friends, get a dog. Danielle, so good to jam with you, and I look forward to all of our upcoming topics because we made a list about 3 years long. I know, so good. And for anybody who is looking to learn how to make a friend or have that +1 in their corner so you can figure out what your next steps are as we do this big thing called life, pop on over to themindrise.com. That's where we're hanging out. We're also on Instagram and Facebook as well. Just look up The Mindrise and you'll be finding us. Bye, guys.
Bye.